I'll tell you, there are some funny things that come out of this. I was hired one time, but one of the jobs that I have is a lot of times the corporate executives fall apart. Guys that are, way up the echelon of the corporate ladder, just given the amount of pressure on them, they just fall apart at the seams. And one of the jobs I have is I go in and spend a week with them and put them back together. To retrain some of these people would cost a fortune. And, it's just, they just crack up under the pressure or something. They hired me one time because they had a guy who did all the advanced planning for a corporation. And he was so good at it, they gave him his own office and they made him a vice president. And from the point forward they did that, this guy could not make any decisions about the future. Not wouldn't, couldn't. They would ask him and he just couldn't think of anything. So I went in and the first thing I did is I asked him, we went in his office and I said, well, where did you used to work, before this happened? Because they told me they gave him a new office and I thought, So he showed me and he pointed out and there was this big, huge, giant room and he used to sit in the corner of it. So we went out and we sat down and I started asking him about his job. Advanced system planning means you do a lot of stuff that has to do with the future. So I asked him, I said, where is a year from now? And we sat there and he said, it's about 10 feet out here. And I said, where's 2 years from now? And he said, it's about 30 or 40 feet out. I said, where's 5 years from now? And he said, that's all the way on the end wall. Now this is, a 60, 70 foot room. Right? So they took this guy and they put him in a little office. There wasn't enough room for his pictures. And it was that bloody simple. That, I mean, talking about having a big timeline, and, so I taught him he could hallucinate through the wall, keep his office and his job. That, if he closed his eyes and imagined the big room, then he had plenty of space. But since he was one of those people that visualizes with his eyes open, there simply was not enough room to think about the future in a little room. Now, you'll discover when you start doing stuff with timelines, you'll discover there's some real funny stuff that comes out of it. I had one guy who was sent to me who, quote-unquote, was mixed up most of the time. And when I asked him about his timeline, it turned out that it corkscrewed forward. But as he thought about things, in the past, they turned upside down as they came in. And he would get dizzy in the head. And if you try it in your own mind, it's like a damn roller coaster ride. Try taking a picture, putting it out in front of you, and having it corkscrew up towards you. Yourself. Yeah, it'll kind of take you for a little thrill ride there. It's kind of the amusement park inside of your head. But you begin to discover that timelines begin to make sense out of things about some of the people that have trouble remembering the past. It's behind them. And literally, you can take a timeline and push it out in front of you, and people will have better recall about events. That people who have trouble planning the future, sometimes people have it goes past, present, and future goes down like this. Now, future is down like that. When you ask them about the future and they start doing this stuff, right? It's like, well, as I look into the future, it's kind of got to bend that sucker up. The thing is that you begin to discover that a lot of things that seem amorphous, when you really begin to ask people things in a methodical way about the relationship of time and the relationship of submodalities, things begin to make sense in ways that they didn't. Usually the afternoon of a second day workshop, I like to begin to do something to integrate some of the techniques together. Because the things that I've presented to you, I want you to think of only as examples. They're the bare bones of things that can be put together in a plethora of combinations for a multitude of uses. Timelines, for example, some of you who are business people, one of the things I like to do when I develop a relationship in business is I usually have people stop, and I'll always tell them in passing about timelines, so as they start to think about it, I can tell them to go off into the future 5 years in advance, and how will we be relating to one another then? Nice presupposition. It allows you to begin to build up long-term. I do that in contract negotiation. Yeah, I can see it now. Good. Can you feel this? It's important. Punctuation ambiguity is my life. It's blood. Now, what I like to do is for you to keep in mind that there's a whole world of different states of consciousness that eliciting submodalities is useful for. All I can really do in a 2-day intro like this is to begin to give you the skills and the inclination to begin to look at it. And given whatever the work that you do is, you'll find that there are different states. You know, some of you, the relaxation states will be more useful. But as you begin to examine the kinds of things that you do, for example, enthusiasm, for those of you who are teachers, is a real nice one to know about. To be able to get enthusiasm from your students and colleagues. One of the things that I always like to elicit and anchor, especially when I work in school systems, is you know, have you ever felt, you know, at a time when you looked at somebody who's doing something totally different from you, and it made you curious, you know? Because I notice a lot of times when you go back and do new things in the school district, all the other teachers jump down your throat. And if you begin to anchor responses like curiosity, have you ever been really curious about something? So curious, you just really wanted to know about it. And when they stop and their eyes move up, you touch them specifically. Say, let me interrupt you for a moment. It's always a good way to anchor when you're doing it covertly. Say, I'd like to show you this new thing I'm doing with my students. Because I notice that when you bring things into a system, if you work for a social agency or when some of you work at a company, if you come in and just start doing new things without adequately preparing the others who are there, they have a tendency to do something called lynching. That very often that what's new is frightening to people. Because one of the things I found out through the years is that what people opt for most commonly is the familiar. Even if it's unpleasant, it's still some certain security in that they know about it. And that when people begin to move into new ways of thinking about things and new domains, one of the things that you have to be able to do is to be able to anchor the resource states to be able to allow them to move into it without being threatened, because they really don't need to be. There's nothing threatening about what's new. It's just that when things are unfamiliar, they feel weird. You know, for example, I don't know how many of you have been to the United States and driven around, but when Terry picked me up at the airport, first thing I did was, you know, try to get in the wrong side of the car. And then when we pulled out of the airport and he pulled into the wrong lane, my stomach, and I knew in my mind, you know, that he was doing everything right, but my stomach went, ah, no, this is wrong. And it's still that way. Now, the thing is, you know, of course, you know, I like this lady's response. She said, gee, you'll have to try driving. A nice BMW, I wouldn't. Don't be giving Richard a strange car with a gear shift on the wrong side, the steering wheel in the wrong place. Because, you know, after a few minutes, I'll be on the other side of the road where it feels familiar. But when you do new things, one of the things you have to do is to remember that for all of us at one time in our life, new things were familiar. And getting back into that state is one of the things that I've found useful. Now there's a set of ways of using these submodalities that are called behavior generators. Behavior generators is simply the use of submodalities in frequent sequence to produce a result. Now, for example, if you stop right now, and you stop and you were to make a big picture, I want you to try this. Make a picture in which you see yourself at a slightly younger age than you are now. And what I want you to do is to turn the picture around, but not yet, I'll tell you when. To turn around and to step inside that picture. And then as soon as you do, to pop open a new picture. So that what you do is you begin to take one image. And once you make that image, what you do is you open up a little hole inside it and have it expand and build an image where you're slightly younger. Now, literally, if you do this in your own mind, if you stop now, make an image, step inside it, make another one, step inside it. And each image, make it one where you're slightly younger until you go back in time to a younger age. Take a few moments and try it. All right, now, so that you can learn to do this quickly. Part of learning to use your brain. Now, for some of you who don't make really good images, I don't want you to worry about this. Your brain is still making the images, so just pretend that you're doing it. As Milton said, you can pretend anything, master it. So take a few moments and go ahead and pop yourself back and practice taking and making pictures, stepping inside them, making another one, stepping inside it. Now, if you learn to take these pictures and start opening them up at about this whoosh, 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 so that you literally are doing it with speed. This is what makes behavioral generators work. The pictures don't have to be perfect, but they do need to come quickly. Now the next technique, I don't know if you've noticed, it's got a few more steps to it than the others, but we're going to take it half of the time. This is a way of beginning to combine submodalities, timelines, together into this little package. Now, I mentioned yesterday that there are some things about you that were true when you were young that aren't true now. And some of those things you're probably grateful for. There are probably some attitudes that you had when you were much younger. And when you think about the things you believed and the way you felt, or things that you did, you can't even believe that it was you. You know it was you, but it just doesn't fit you anymore. You know what I'm talking about here? Now, what we're going to do here is I want you to go and find something like, and it may be that you believe so adamantly in Santa Claus, and when you think that you believe that, you go, how could I believe that? That's just ridiculous. Now, I want you to think of something, not that's painful, but something that is absolutely ludicrous. You know, because, I mean, for example, you know, there was a time maybe in some of your life where you thought that, you know, that sex was frightening. Now, some of you may still have that, in which case we'll change it. But I mean, you know, it's like, I know that some people go, I would never do anything like that. You know, 10 years later, you know, they're looking at magazines going, God, I wish I had a chance to do that. My, how times change, don't they? Yeah, and if you find things, there are things that when you were younger, you thought, you said to yourself, you would never do it. I'd never be that way. And as soon as you had your own kids, you were out there doing it. Saying those things your parents said to you. I couldn't believe it the first time I caught myself doing it. It just blew me out of the water. It just took me out. Was that my voice saying that? You know, you say to your kids, you know, all those things that you said you never said. I'd never be that way. All kinds of things. But you need to, I want you to find and really look for something that when you think about it, makes you laugh. Something that's just so ludicrous when you go, you know, God, you know, what an airhead I was. I'd believe anything. Things that you thought were difficult, like it'd be impossible to learn to drive. You know, I know a lot of people that, you know, especially when they had clutches in cars. You know, see, what? I wish they still did, because it would reduce the number of drivers in California. What? Really? Yeah, but they have them on the wrong side, so it doesn't count. But I want to tell you, if I had to drive a clutch and a stick in this country, it would drive me insane. Boy, that would be the ultimate hand-eye mind coordination. It's like, take everything you know and reverse it now. It's like, just take your pictures and take them and turn them around this way. And then when you go home, turn them back. You know, it's always wondered, like, you know, these images in your mind, what's on the back of them? Did you ever think about that? You know, have you ever tried turning one around and seeing what's there? It's kind of fun, you know. Sometimes there's graffiti and stuff, you know. And so then I started wondering, where do pictures go when they go away? You ever think of that? See, it's like, for example, when I've had a lot of clients that have terrible images in their mind that scare the shit out of them and depress them and stuff. And I started getting them to be curious about, well, you know, I wonder what's behind it. And they'd always think I had them emotionally. And I go, no, not emotionally. I mean, really behind it. Just hold the picture steady. And then I have to sneak around behind the picture, see what's back there. And of course, when the picture's behind them, then there's no need to remember it at all. Just let it drift away. Now, into trance. I love punctuation ambiguity. It makes me happy. Now, what I want you to do is to go back, and when you find something, I want you to literally tell your partner to go back in time and remember something that they thought was of vital fucking importance, that it was the most important thing in the world. And when they think about it now, it seems ludicrous. Because what I want you to do is to get something which is a past experience of where you knew it was you, but when you think about it, it just makes you want to laugh. It's just fucking ridiculous. It's ludicrous. And to keep telling them that until they think of it, and you get at least a mild giggle when they think about it, and they go, yeah, like, because that's the attitude you want. Now, once you do that, I want you to go through and to get the submodalities of that. You need to compare them with something that's really important, you know, or something that's important that they don't want to be important. Because we all have a lot of things about our attitudes and our behaviors that if we just didn't have, life would be a lot easier. For example, some of us worry ourselves to death about everything. I know people worry about everything. But what would happen if? And I mean, then there are people who are planning freaks. I don't know if you've ever gone out with one. These are the people that go, well, where will we be at 8 o'clock? And you go, well, I don't know. You're going to pick me up at 7. I don't know where we're going. You go, well, I need to know. What do you want to do next Tuesday? Now, some of us, you know, the future goes like this. And we go, oh, I don't know, man. Anything's cool. And some people, you know, the future has to be chunked just perfect. Now, if you have this disease, as long as, if it gets in your way, you can be cured of it. If it is your life, keep it. Now, I want you to find also, at the same time, things that you wish you could look back on and laugh. Because remember I told you my policy is, why wait? So what we're going to do is once you've elicited the submodalities of something that's just past and ludicrous, what I want you to do is to build a behavioral generator. And what this means is, as soon as you know the location of the images, where the sound comes from, especially the tone of the internal dialogue, and where it comes from in space, its distance, to the point where you really get the feeling from the person. Okay, so you really take them back into the memory. I want you to anchor it. Now, when you build the behavioral generator, then what you do is you have them literally stop, put up the submodalities from the memory they have, and then in the middle, open up something that they want to be passed. And so it pops open, and what you do is you say, I want to count to 3, and I want you to pop the picture open of the thing that you would like to be passed and ludicrous, which isn't now. And you go 1, 2, 3, and when they open it up, you go pow, and fire the anchor. This will help them. Now, the thing that I want you to do is as soon as they have the behavioral generator where you've done it with a couple of different things, then what I want you to do is to have them identify for you where their timeline is. They'll know now because they just did it. They'll be able to pick for you. That makes it easy. What I want you to do is I want you to put this one day in the future. Okay? So that you take the behavioral generator you just built, put it one day in the future, and have them run through 7 things, 7 new things about themselves that they would just like to get rid of in their behavior. They just don't want it no more. Things, behaviors that get in their way, petty fears, petty worries, whatever it is. And I want you to start popping them open like this, but keep it in the same submodalities as ludicrous, and simply place the whole thing in the timeline so that it's tomorrow. Now, the reason for this is that what we're building is a generative system so that as tomorrow approaches, they will continue at the unconscious level to begin to get rid of unwanted past things. I talked earlier about the fact that sometimes the past hangs around too much. Well, it's true, and sometimes it manifests itself in unwanted behavior. Now, the thing about behaviors you don't want is the one thing you don't want, it's not the behavior itself you don't want, it's the compulsion to do it when you don't want to do it. It's not that you yell at people too much, you know, it's that you're yelling at people when you don't want to. It's always nice to be able to yell at people when you feel like it, but if you end up yelling at your children when they didn't do anything wrong and you're doing it all the time, it's not that you want to give up yelling, it's that you want to give up doing it when you don't want to do it. So you literally pick the context, and by sticking it in your timeline, building a behavioral generator, you begin to mold your behavior at the unconscious level. Now, this is an extremely powerful tool, but it doesn't work just only with making things which are past, because we're going to add to it, after you do this part, about what do you put in its place, about building new and wanted behaviors. But I always find that it's a good formula when you work with somebody to first create a void and then fill it. So we're going to start by taking things away, and once you've done that, then we're going to come back in and I'm going to send you out and show you how you put things in its place. But let's start at the beginning and take it just one piece at a time, remembering this is not all of it. Find yourself a new partner, but you're going to keep your partner through the next 2 exercises. Okay? Have we got that? They've talked for a long time in the field of NLP, and this is something I don't approve of much, of outcomes. I don't like outcomes, I like results. Results are where you get people to directionalize their behavior so they start moving towards the kind of life that they want. When you start making changes in your behavior, when you start getting rid of the parts of yourself you don't like and start adding what you do want. Now, that's about what it boils down to in a nutshell. Getting rid of things, I mean, if somebody's terrified of an elevator, I mean, elevators aren't that threatening most of the time. But yet elevator phobias are common. People have phobias of birds. I know dozens and dozens of people that have come to me that have phobias of pigeons. Not a real brutal bird, if you think about it, Sit around and eat garbage in the park, But when you were a little tiny kid, one comes up and pecks you on the foot, man. Human beings are learning machines. They go, terror, right? And then they forget they grew up. A pigeon this big, person that big, It's the old adage, rock breaks scissors. Pigeon get near you, go, But your brain doesn't do that. So a lot of times you have to just take and get rid of this stuff and to disassociate it with you. So you have to remind your brain. A lot of the techniques that I'm using are to get your brain to start kicking in and learning again. They told me, the academicians, well, after the age of 5, people's personality is completely cemented and they don't learn anymore. And I thought, well, is that a self-description or a generalization about the population? Because it is not my experience. I find that human beings are capable of learning no matter how long they live. Now, it's true that we grow more synapses when we're younger at a faster rate, but then there's more to learn. I mean, you have to learn to do things like eat, breathe, not stick your hand in hot fire. Although Tony Robbins has changed that. For those of you who haven't heard of it, it's one of my colleagues as people walk across hot coals. Me, I try to get people to walk around them. I don't know, but they pay through the nose for it. They love it, and I suppose it's good. But what's good about it is that most people think that's impossible. Now, natives in Tahiti are doing it every Wednesday night. You go to the Bali High Hotel in Waiatea, and ignorant natives are walking across hot coals every Wednesday night. People go, let's model that. We could make all of America into ignorant natives. What can I say, But it is still something that when people do it, they discover that what they thought was impossible is possible. And that's what counts to me. What counts is that you begin to learn that you can really start using your brain to do all kinds of tricky stuff. Then you don't need to use the exact combinations that are in the books that I write. What you need to do is to get the principles down enough that you can begin to play with them. Now, I want to give you the second half of this to work with. Somebody told me I was chunking up a little too high. I know that. But if in 2 days, what I'm going to do is get you going, and that's what I'm here for, is to provide you with technology, and hopefully, when you leave here, you'll take it and begin to experiment. The more wantonly, the better. Now, some people take this technology and abuse it. They use it, and to me, that's a simple definition. You either use it to make people happier and wealthier and healthier, or you take it and you use it so you can feel superior. If you do that, you're always going to feel bad anyway. So when you feel like you have to feel superior to people, it's too much work and they don't pay you enough for that. It's a lot more fun to go around putting a smile on people's faces. Believe me, you'll make more money, you'll be happier and healthier, and you'll have a lot more of something else that's highly valued too, which shall remain unnamed, but it starts with an S. Now, the other thing that I've found is real important is the ability to build wanton behaviors. And some of us, what we're missing is we just haven't had experiences of being a certain kind of person or being a certain way. Now, I found that one of the most powerful ways to go about this is to go back and to find what are called imprint experiences. Imprint experiences are those few, rare, dynamic, overwhelming experiences that utterly changed your life. Now, I don't know if you guys have those over here, but I would suspect you do. That one of the things that happens is not only when you're a youngster, but when you're a teenager and sometimes when you're an adult, something comes along and pow, it hits you straight, and it changes everything. Now, hopefully, you can find one of those that was positive. Sometimes you can't, so you have to go to the ones that are unpleasant, but it's better if you can find one where you just suddenly went, whoa, and the world cleared up, and you saw things for what they were, and you changed in some dynamic and dramatic type way. Now, if you can find one of those in your partner, what I want you to do now is to elicit the submodalities of that. Because think of what a gift. If there's an experience that totally changed your life, and there are things in your life you want to change, what better set of submodalities to use than those? None. Because what you do is you elicit the submodalities of an imprint, and then what you do is you simply sit down and build the imprint. What would have had to happen for you to have the characteristics in your personality that you want? To be more ferocious, to be more gregarious, to be more open, to be more tender, whatever it happens to be, to be a better lover, whatever it happens to be. This is where you get to start being really grandiose. The second day. Imagine what happens to people in my 12-day course. The ones that live. Now, once you have designed and built a new imprint with all of the submodalities, and this is where you literally make it up. And what you make up is the following. You want to design an experience that no matter when it happened, would predict that suddenly at the age you are now, you would change. See, a lot of us believe that when I turn 50, everything changes. I love it. A friend of mine, Ann Teachworth, the lady that teaches the flirting seminar with me, decided when she turned 50, that she would be allowed to say anything she wanted to anybody, and she never had to hold anything back ever again. And when her 50th birthday came along, damned if it didn't turn out to be true. Take it from me, I know. But the thing is that you can make the same kinds of predictions so that whatever your present age is, that some experience determines and predicts that when you turn that age, boom, you get these characteristics. Because goddamn, you're entitled to them. You live that long, you're owed it. Now, once you create an experience in your mind with the right submodalities, build the new experience, what you do is you go back into your timeline and you place the event in your past, your present, and into your future. So they can see in your future that you actually have examples of having had been that way. Now I realize that's a little confusing, but all that means is you go into the future and put examples of your acting that way. And in the present, that it is true. And in the past, you put the event that makes it so it has to be. Now, once you've done that, you simply take and you go back to the beginning of your timeline and run right up to the present on the inside real fast. It's kind of like a roller coaster ride. All the events fly like lightning. Pew! Pop out the end and float back so that your timeline is back in its present position. Now, you weren't supposed to do it until you got to the exercise. Otherwise, you must just drop into a deep trance. You never know what would happen. Suddenly, unconsciously. But not now. Now. I want to tell you that it's time to go do it. Now, the next thing I want to do is to be able to take some of the techniques that we did and to begin to go one step further. Because see, it's not enough to teach you these things. I want to make sure that you take them back to where you're going to use them and enjoy them. And you'll do this. Now, the thing that I want you to do is I want you to go and find yourself a new partner. And I want you to go and elicit from them the best example of them having a great fun time and really being in a state of wanting to unmitigated pleasure. I want you to go for peak experience, which of course is not good enough. Because the next thing I want you to do is to go through, just like you did yesterday, and take the submodalities, because you now have an idea which ones really make a difference. Some don't do that much. Angle, no big deal. Angle is real important, the angle of the image in front of you, for motivation strategies. But for this, it's going to be distance, size, pulsation, things like that. Now, I want you to go through and amplify and create a sliding anchor so that you take their peak experience and amplify and anchor it. Submodality by submodality, as you go through, I want you to take that experience and crank it up even more. My thing is more ecstasy, because my policy is too much is not enough. Now, as soon as you get a good, powerful anchor for that, then I want you to slingshot them the other way and ask them where their anchor is from when they did the exercise yesterday to drop into a relaxation state. Do this before you fire it off. Once they tell you where it is, so you have them cranked up like this, peak experience, then what I want you to do is to fire off relaxation state so they go the other way. It's kind of the roller coaster approach to things. And then what I want you to do is, while they're in that relaxed state, I want you to have them cycle through, and you can literally tell them to stop and think of times and places in their life where they really need to be having more fun, especially doing this kind of work. Because I've noticed some of you in here are a little serious about this. And this was made up by a madman. I mean, you can't take this stuff seriously. You got to understand this is the basis of the technology. Yes, I'm a good scientist, but when you get into the labs in the back wards of major corporations, where I was, all the guys that are doing good work are nuts. And I mean flaming nuts. You just give a genius a whole bunch of toys, big lasers, all this stuff. We can invent anything. Just give us food every few days and we're fine. The thing is what I want you to do is to stop and think of the times and places in your work that you do where you really need to be having more fun. So you can start to take these techniques, make them your own, and really use them. So I want you with your partner to have you go and stop and think of, in the future, where will you be using these? Where will you be in your office, consulting places, at home? And each time the person thinks of one, because since you're going to tell them, do this is what I love to do. Come here, let me demonstrate. We'll show them how easy this is. Start into the second row now. I'll get to you guys yet. You think you're safe there, but your unconscious mind knows now that you may find it handy and uplifting. You may be surprised that when I do something to her, you may find yourself in a deep trance. No, 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 no. Or does it go? No. Now, what I want you to do is, as you have them in a state of relaxation, let's say, for example, I had elicited already an example of something which is wantonly pleasurable and fun. I told her, think of something. I mean, one of the most peak and most pleasurable experiences that you could possibly imagine, and had it anchored it. Now, if I had done that, for example, none of this can be done covertly either. I want you to know that. And I had told her that even if you stopped and thought about exactly what that was, and the picture were to get bigger and brighter, the volume were to go up, and it were to become even that much more intense, times 3, 4, or 5. Yeah, that's right, something like that. And then suddenly said, just relax comfortably, because I'm going to reach over in a moment and I'm going to lift up your left arm. And I'm not going to tell you to put it down any faster. When you begin to think of a time and a place, your past experience, where you've noticed that perhaps you've been serious about life in a way that's not as useful as it could be. If you kept your sense of humor, the pleasure about you, as you look at the places where you work, perhaps, and you look into the future, I want you to see yourself and find yourself there, feeling this fully and intensely and intensely. That's right. You really see yourself beginning to do things in a new way, with new flexibility and new enjoyment. And understand that your mind is your best friend. Because nothing can make things more fun than this. And I want you to stop right here. And I want you to pick 3 more times in places in your life where you really need to take your attitude and adjust it to one of wanting unmitigated fun and pleasure, so that your creativity bursts loose. And one by one, I want you to see yourself in those places, see yourself doing new things, enjoying yourself in new ways, and then I want you to step inside and feel this intensely and intently. Now, the last thing that I want you to be able to do is also to be able to future pace things. Now, future pace is the NLP word for post-hypnotic suggestion. And this simply means that you pick things that are going to occur in the future for sure. I've always told people the one thing you can count on is reality. Reality will always be there. People have trouble with authority figures, and you can count on the fact they're going to be there. And they're your best tool, because that could be what fires off all your work. These are the anchors that exist in the world that are very, very useful. And what I want to do is to tell you right now that you can see the things that will be in each of these contexts. And each time you see them there, I want you to feel this intensely. You understand? That's right. Now, in a moment I'm going to reach over, I'm going to touch you on the left knee, and when I do, you'll reorient back here, refreshed and alert, remembering that each time you need this in those contexts, it'll be there. In fact, it'll be all over, spreading now. That's right. Now, the thing that I want you to pay attention to, thank you, by the way, yeah, you got to admit to come up here and let me fool with your head. It's got to take a lot of courage, a lot of guts, or just not much good sense. But as long as you paid for it, you might as well. The thing is what I'm trying to get across to you now is that this is the Reader's Digest version of what I want you to do. Because as you go through and amplify those submodalities, you're really going to take the time to go through and find out which ones peak it over the edge. And as you anchor it, you now have a tool that you can go through so that when you suddenly, because I want you to ask where the anchor is that puts them back in trance, and they have each of you has a self-anchor and one of your own. There's a very powerful phenomenon about slingshotting people from state to state. That as you go through and you create the anchor for the peak experiences and slam them all the way down into relaxation, it sort of opens the doors in the mind. So I've always thought of confusion as a doorway to a new reality. It's a chance and an opportunity to begin to reorient yourself so that you get out of the ruts that we all get into as human beings. As we live every day in our normal life, one of the dangers is that when you go through and you learn new things like this, is that when you go back, you just kind of forget about it. And you don't want that. This is an opportunity to begin to go into an altered state, see the environments that could constitute a rut for you, fire off those anchors so that those things become connected together. And with a little simultaneous suggestion that exactly that will happen. So when you reach over and you tell them I'm going to lift up your left arm and I'm not going to tell you to put it down any faster, that's a way of saying hold your arm up there, which is another way of saying just not nearly as much fun. That you tell them to allow their arm to go down only at the rate and speed at which they connect, and then you fire off the pleasure anchor. These feelings are exactly where you need them, so that you can see yourself using these techniques, you can see yourself doing new things in your life, with your family, with your friends, your business, wherever it's going to be. And each time you see a new context, you'll feel this, and you fire off the anchor, so that you begin to take the new and powerful and strong feelings of enjoying your work with you when you leave here. Where are we anyway? What's the name of this place? Quit? I don't like that. Doesn't it have a whole name? Isn't this a technical? It's the what? It's the Queensland Institute of Technology. But the Queensland Institute of Technology actually probably could use this technology, but it's not going to get it. You are. And I want to make sure that you take it with you when you leave here. So go find yourself a partner now. And now it's time for the ultimate slingshot. And I want you to make sure that you pick and find the most peak experience you can. Because I not only want you to learn these things, I want you to enjoy the hell out of using them. Because if you do, you're going to want to do it a lot. Pleasure is like that. Okay? Take about 15 minutes apiece. Meet me back here. If you stop and think about during the time you've been here, I know that the unconscious portions of each of both of you are capable of learning and remembering things. And I know I went through a tremendous amount of material, but I did so intentionally. For two reasons. One, I figure in an introduction to the kind of work that I do, it's best that I give you a whole variety of things. A variety of contexts to use things in and a variety of techniques, because I trust that as adults you will be able to sit down afterwards and to practice them, to learn them, and to make them familiar so that you can integrate them into what you do. And also because Terry told me he was going to run study groups afterwards. Now, the thing is that I'd like you to take a few moments now and to take the technology and turn it on itself. Just close your eyes for a few moments and begin to think back over some of the techniques that you've learned here. Starting way back so long ago yesterday, reviewing things like anchoring, the learnings of submodalities, things about how to motivate yourself, things about realizing that the ideas in your head can be bigger, brighter, and bolder, that you can put thunder inside your mind and music. And when you do so, you can exhilarate yourself more and more. That the processes that you use as a human being internally are the very tools of thought itself. And that if you stop and see yourself now using techniques like this in your own work and literally visualize your timeline, float up and float 6 weeks, a month, 2 months into the future, begin to see yourself using them more and more gracefully and getting better and better results. Nothing breeds hope in a world like success. And you will find that as you use this stuff with your clients, as you sell more cars, and for those of you who are clinicians, begin to have more and more effective results with your clients, that you'll feel better about yourself and so will they. Nothing breeds success like success. As you begin to see yourself in the future using new ideas, you may discover that you begin to use them in your own unique way. This is not something that one does right or wrong. This is where wanton experimentation is the spirit of discovery and the opportunity for this field itself to grow. It's a field that's built on the very belief that human beings are learning machines, and the things that they can do can be used to technologies that allow them to become more human, to do more things more successfully. That what we're doing here is breeding genius, cloning excellence, and getting into wanton and unmitigated passion and pleasure. Because the extremes of human experience, from enjoyment to success, are the kinds of things that we want to proliferate. Many people in their lives have experienced repeated and repeated disappointment, and not because they don't want things to be better. Not, I believe, because people have bad motives, but because they simply lack the technology to be able to model the excellence in other human beings. For you now have the beginning of a technology that can offer you the opportunity to find the people around you that can enjoy things that you don't enjoy and learn to enjoy them their way. To have the opportunity to begin to experiment even within your own mind. To find ways of changing your attitude, your beliefs. Some of the things you learned about you may or may not remember all of, Some of them are in the books I've written. Some of them will be. But the parts that you get, the parts that stick most in your own minds, are the things that will become your own. There'll be things that you can use from everything from waking yourself up in the morning to learning to be a better cook, to a better lover, to a better scientist, a better salesman, and to be a clinician who can kick ass. Because when you look at a client and you say, "You're mine," when their difficulties look small and inconsequential, you'll realize that your clients are focused. They're looking up at the problem as if it's a huge mountain. And you know that it's just a molehill because there's so much more available to them. What you'll have to offer them is not just the ability to get rid of a phobia or to get over a problem of procrastination, but the ability to want more than they ever suspected in terms of the range of pleasurable human experience. And I can think of no better thing for people in the field of psychology to do than to go around and to begin, rather than, as somebody told me at lunch, they had to study statistics to learn to work with people. And I've never had a client that needed statistics. But I have had myriads and myriads of clients that really need to have more pleasure in their life, more fun, and more passion, more competence, more excellence, and just plain old good old fun. I was almost going to say American fun, but I guess you guys get to have it too. Now, what I'd like you to do is to make sure that the learnings of this particular school don't stay here. They go with you into your life. I want you to take what you've learned, use it, change it, and make it fit for you. And whenever you come up against any client or any task seems impossible, I want you to fire off that ludicrous anchor you made for yourself and hear the laughter inside your head. Because most of what you've experienced here, I was told, was impossible. And it isn't. All you have to do is find somebody that can do it, find out how they did it, and steal their mind, and move onward. There is nothing in this world that you can't do or can't even want to do. Now, with that in mind, I'm going to turn Mission Control Center back to Terry McClendon, since he's going to be in Australia, and I'm not. And he's going to tell you about setting up study groups for those of you who'd like to practice. And I'd like to suggest to you that you also take the time to learn the language patterns in NLP. They're what makes neurolinguistic programming very elegant, because the things I've presented to you, I've presented in kind of a haphazard way, sort of a perusing through this and that. And the more rigorous and the more thorough you get about this particular technology, the more things you'll be able to do.